is ticking. I look at the clock and it's after 11 o'clock, and you know what that means. That means it's time for your favorite show and mine, Countdown to Armageddon, with your host, Publius. And I'm here to bring you the latest, the greatest, and whatever I can find. And today's topic, we're going to have a good topic. Got a really good topic for you today. It's an important topic. What topic is that, you say? It's the U.S. Constitution. This is an important topic, and it's very important, and you're sitting back going, Publius, why is it important? I mean, nobody really cares. Yes, you should. And if you don't, you really should, because we live in a society that is set up along certain rules. And the rules of the game are all defined in the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution set the United States apart from every other country in the world when it first came out, because we said, as a people, government can do this. We defined our government. Prior to that, government was what government defined it as. The kings decided who they were and what they could do and what they couldn't do. Occasionally they throw a bone to the peasants and say, okay, I won't do this no more. We decided, no, this is the way it's going to work. Government will be thrown its bones, and the rest of it is ours. The problem is that as we've gone through time, most people have no clue what the Constitution says. That's like playing a very complicated game without knowing the rules. And our government counts on this. Our founding fathers were of the belief that government is best when it governs the least. Now, if you look around yourself today, you don't see government governing the least. You see a lot of government. And you have a lot of people complaining about the size of the government. Now, I think they're arguing about a symptom of not the size of the government is only a symptom of the problem. It's a symptom because the real problem is the scope of government. And you can't complain about the scope if you do not understand what the point and what the rules and the limits were placed on it. So let's take a look. I'm not going to read you the U.S. Constitution. If you want to, I do recommend reading it. And I may surprise you and throw in a reading of it, just to be different. But I'm going to take and break the Constitution down in several sections, because it's broken down that way. That's the way it was written. When you look at the U.S. Constitution, the first thing you notice is the preamble. What is the preamble? The preamble is basically the introduction. It tells you the point of the document, what they're going to try to accomplish with the document. The preamble grants no powers. It's a, hi, welcome to Publius. In this case, it says, we the people of the United States. That's you and me, folks. That is not our government, that's the people. In order to form a more perfect union, to form a more perfect government, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Okay, so what were they trying to do? They wanted to form a more perfect government, to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, that's saying people getting along, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to themselves and to their children. That's to our posterity. Okay, let me real quickly point out a few things to you. When they say they promote the general welfare, they're saying to promote the idea that this document's goal is to help people provide for themselves, to promote a general welfare well-being. It is not the way we use the word welfare today. Let's take a look at the definition from Merriam-Webster of the word welfare. And we see this: the state of doing well, especially in respect to good fortune, happiness, well-being, or prosperity. Must look out for your own welfare, is the example they give. The second entry is aid in the form of money or necessity for those in need, an agency or program through which such aid is distributed. Now notice that 2A and 2B, the second part of the definitions, are what most people consider welfare today. But they didn't have that back then. What they had and what they were talking about is to promote a sense of good fortune, happiness, well-being, and prosperity. And the key part, within the definition here, you must look out for your own welfare. So let's go back to the preamble. What they're saying is that the goal of this document is to establish a better government, to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare, the general state of well-being, and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. At which point, we now leave the preamble. The very first article of the Constitution, Article 1, provides for the powers of the legislature. Section 1 states, the legislative power herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Okay, we have a bicameral legislature, two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House is the people's house. It is supposed to be composed of members who represent people. Now, we used to have a Senate which represented the states. We no longer have that, and I'll get into that in a minute. But Section 2 defines what the House is. It tells you how they are. The electors shall have qualifications, what their qualifications are, how they are chosen. Now, notice here, it says, no person shall be a representative who shall not attain the age of 25 years, been 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of that state in which he shall be chosen. Now, y'all remember back whenever Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton left the White House, they moved to New York. They did so that Hillary could be a citizen of the state of New York, and she lived in an area so that she could become a representative of that area. Now, granted, she ran for the Senate. Now, what's the difference in the power of the two, the House versus the Senate? Let's see if we can see some answers to that. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Let's pause for a second. Okay, as we look along through the thing, we'll find the difference between the Houses and the Senate. The first thing we notice as a difference is the age. The House is 25, the Senate is 30. Let me double check that. Shall be chosen. Need to scroll up. Yes, 30 years. And you have to be a citizen for 9 years. So there's your first difference. The second difference is the House chooses its hierarchy. They choose the Speaker of the House and so on. The Vice President of the Senate, Vice President of the United States shall be President of the Senate, but shall have no vote unless they be equally divided, meaning the Senate. We see this today with Kamala Harris. As Vice President of the United States, she sits as the President of the Senate. But she doesn't get to vote unless the two sides are equally tied. By the two sides, that means the members of the Senate. Now, the Senate also chooses their own officers, including the President Pro Tem. The President Pro Tem is basically the head of the Senate. Now, let's see. The other thing is it says the Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. Requires 2/3 of the Senate to convict. So that's how Donald Trump got off both times, and that's also how Bill Clinton got off, because they didn't reach the 2/3 requirement to impeach. Now, there was a big argument on whether the second time Donald Trump was impeached was it legal, and we see here the judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal of office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. Now, it does state the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to the indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to the law afterwards. But what we see here is that the first part of an impeachment is requiring that, you got to be able to kick them out of office. The second part is that can be used in impeachment is the disqualification from serving again. So the argument was whether or not could you impeach Donald Trump once he left. Now remember, the Senate did not hold the trial until after Donald Trump had already left office. Was that legal? Well, this is one of those cases where the Constitution isn't perfectly clear, but it seems to me it states here, the judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to remove from office. Now, I'm not positive. That's an argument that is going to be made, and it's going to be made from both sides until someone finally makes an official ruling. Let's go on down. We're now in Section 4 of Article 1, which talks about how elections are going to be held. Continuing on. Section 5 is how each house shall be the judge of the elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members, and a majority of each shall constitute a quorum to do business, but a smaller number may adjourn from day to day, and may be authorized to compel attendance of absent members. Okay, basically it says each house judges themselves. Okay. They make their own rules and proceedings. So we need to go back to the top of the next column. Each house shall keep a journal, which is basically saying they have to record what happens. It says neither house can basically say, I'm going home. By house we mean Senate or House of Representatives without the consent of the other, adjourn for more than 3 days, nor to any other place other than where the two houses shall be sitting. So this means the Senate can't say, well, I'm moving to San Francisco without permission from the House. Section 6 says that they shall be paid from the Treasury. Now, right here, there's a key part in that first paragraph. They shall in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of peace be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses, and in going to and returning from the same. And for any speech or debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. This means that when a senator or a congressman says something in the House, they cannot be held liable for it elsewhere. They cannot be arrested. You cannot sit there and say, well, we're just not going to let you go to Congress. We're going to arrest you. They are privileged from arrest. Does this mean that if a senator or a congressman commits a crime, they cannot be held accountable? Yes, they can, but they cannot be held accountable while Congress is in session. This means that whenever, now this is my opinion, that basically what happens is when Congress adjourns, and they do this many times throughout the year, at that point, and the congressman returns home, they can be arrested then, because you're not using it as a political move, or in theory. It says no senator or representative shall hold any other office while they are serving, nor shall they be able to get profit, the Endowments Clause. In other words, you can't get paid for another job while holding office. Now, we'll go on to this. The next article that we're going to come to is the key, the biggest part of this section. I'm saying things wrong. The next section we're going to come to is the most important section of this article. Article 1, covering the legislature. Section 7, Section 8, and Section 7. These are the powers of Congress. All bills raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives. But the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. Every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall, before it become a law, be presented to the President of the United States. If he approves it and signs it, if not, he'll return it with his objections to the House in which it should have originated, who shall enter objections at large in the journal, and proceed to reconsider it. If after consideration 2/3 of the House shall agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent together with objections to the other House, in which likewise it will be considered, blah blah blah. Basically it says that how to overturn a veto. Continuing on, talks about if the President hasn't signed it within 10 days and the houses are still in session, it shall become a law. If the House leaves, if Congress adjourns before the 10 days are up, or before the President signs it, then the bill dies. It's called a pocket veto. Scrolling down. Let's go to the next. Alright. Finally, we get to Section 8. Now, I said Section 7 was important, but Section 8 is the key to understanding Congress. Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and exercise, and to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imports, and exercise shall be uniform throughout the United States. This means that they cannot sit there and say the state of Texas will pay this much and the other states will pay less. But the power to lay and collect taxes is the power of Congress. To borrow money is the power of Congress. To regulate commerce with foreign nations among the several states, meaning the goods and services that move between states, and with the Indian tribes is the power of Congress. To establish a uniform rule of nationalization and a uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies, throughout the United States. Congress can coin money, regulate the value thereof, and a foreign coin, and fix the standards of weights and measurements. They may provide punishment for counterfeiting, to establish a post office and post roads, to promote progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive rights to their respective writing and discoveries, patents, to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Pause. This means you have the Supreme Court. It's established in Article 3. Any court below that had to first be established by Congress to constitute tribunals inferior to. Okay, going on. To define and punish piracy and felonies committed on the high seas, an offense against the laws of the nation. To declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. Congress shall raise and support an army, but no apportionment of money to that use shall be for longer than a term of 2 years. They must provide and maintain a navy. They make rules for government and regulation of the land and naval forces. Provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrection, and repel invasions. They are required to provide for organizing, arming, disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. Stop. Let's go back to this. This one's these things got a little bit complicated here. Let's go back to where it talks about the armies, which is right there. To raise and support armies. Remember, the army, a standing army, according to our founding fathers, was dangerous. Number one, basically you can think of it as this. Our founding fathers saw government as almost I'm going to say it, but they didn't mean it that way, but basically it formed a mob, and the head of this mob or criminal organization had power, but without an army it had no thugs. They didn't want the President of the United States or the Congress of the United States to have a bunch of thugs. Now, please do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying the U.S. Army is a bunch of thugs. What I'm saying is that they felt the Army could be used to force people to do things that they didn't like. And it has historically done that. Maybe not the U.S. Army so much, but militaries throughout the world have been used against their citizens. So to prevent this, there was to be no standing army. They would raise the army and support the armies, but for no longer than 2 years. The Navy was to be provided for and maintained full time. The Congress would write the rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. Today we call it the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The next thing we get is to provide for the calling forth of the militia. Remember, we didn't have a standing army. So when they raised the army, they would call forth the militias. Today we see this as whenever they call forth the National Guard, and they start using the National Guard of the Union to suppress insurrection and repel invasions. You don't see them saying to call it forth to go beat somebody up because we don't like them. They are to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining of that militia, and for the governing of such parts of them that may be employed in the service of the United States, meaning they're not in charge whenever they're not called to service. The states shall, though, appoint the officers and be in charge of the trading of that militia, according to the rules set up by Congress. Okay, let's go on. Let's see if we get any other powers. Now, this one's going to be kind of important in the next couple of years. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, basically over the Washington, D.C. area. As you can see right here in the Constitution, Washington, D.C. is being set up to be separate from all other principalities. It's not to be under any other state or authority. And it also to exercise like authority over all such places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the state shall be. Same shall be used for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. Basically, Congress shall make the laws and rules for federal property. Finally, we have to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for the carrying into execution the above powers, and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States, or to any its department or officer thereof. Congress makes the rules. Okay. But Congress could only make those rules that apply to the powers they were given. Okay, let me see if I can help you understand this. What we have here is a constitution that says the federal government shall be able to do this, and only this. We're giving them the powers to do these things, but only these things. You do not see up there the power to form a religion. So therefore, Congress can't do it. That last paragraph, the last clause, does not give them the power to do anything other than what they are granted the power to do. They cannot make a law that gives them the power to do anything beyond what is listed in Section 8. Okay, Section 9 talks about the penalties and how what Congress cannot do. They cannot you cannot suspend writ of habeas corpus except in the case of rebellion or invasion. No bill of attainder, no ex post facto law. Now there is a sentence here that says no capitalization or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before. Basically no direct taxes. Now this has been changed by an amendment. It says you cannot place a duty or a tax on interstate commerce. You cannot favor one state over another. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of apportionment made by the law. Basically, it says here, you can't spend money without a law allowing you to. There shall be no title of nobility. We don't have lords and ladies. We don't have dukes. You cannot, as a member of Congress or of the executive branch, accept gifts or emoluments, office, title, or of any kind from any king, prince, or foreign state. Meaning you cannot get money from foreign governments. Now, what does this mean? This is called the emolument clause. It means as a senator you cannot get paid from another country. You cannot accept a title from another country. You cannot take a gift from another country. Nothing from somebody else, which would basically, you can't be bought. That to do so without the consent of Congress is a crime. Now, there was a lot of talk about how Trump made money at his hotels from foreigners and even from foreign governments that would rent rooms. Certain people wanted to call this a violation of the emolument clause. But this wasn't a gift to Trump. This wasn't a service President Trump was providing. It was a service that his corporation was providing. So basically, saying that he violated the emolument clause is kind of iffy there. It would really come down to an interpretation in the courts. All right, let's go up to the top of the next column. And we shall see that we are now in Section 10. No state shall enter into a treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or appraisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make any things but gold or silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or a law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, impose any imports or duties on imports or exports, except what may be absolutely necessary for executing its inspection laws. The net produce of all duties and imports laid by any state or shall be the use. Basically, it says states cannot put in export laws. They cannot charge their people for sending goods outside the United States or for receiving goods into the state from outside the U.S. other than what is necessary for inspecting it. The import and export tariffs are the sole property of the United States government. States cannot raise an army, cannot make treaties, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent dangers as will not allow a time of delay. Basically, if a giant army was coming from Mexico up and was sitting at the U.S.-Texas border, Texas can't go to war with Mexico without permission from the U.S. government unless that army invades or is basically in the process of getting ready to invade without permission from the federal government. Now, the minute another army invades, they have the permission to defend themselves. So, this was Article 1, which was the power of the legislature. Now, I'm not going to go into Article 2 in depth, because the purpose of Article 2 is to define the power of the executive branch, which is the executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States. He shall hold this office for 4 years, and together with the Vice President, chosen for the same term, and then we shall be elected. Okay, presidency. Article 2 gives the power of the executive branch. The purpose of the executive branch is to enforce the laws, to take the laws that the House and the Senate pass that have been turned into law and enforce them, to apply these laws. Article 2 tells you how the president shall be appointed or brought into power. Now notice that it has changed. Originally, it was done by Congress and the Senate. Later, thanks to an amendment, the president is done through a popular election. bound and restricted within what is called sorry about that, folks. I had a total mind blank. We use a system involving what is called the Electoral College. The Electoral College is based on the number of people that basically each state gets a elector for every person they have that serves in the legislature. This means that, for example, the smallest state in the United States gets 3 electors. The largest states get an elector for every member of the House, plus their two electors for the Senate. The idea behind this was to keep the big states from ruling the small states, keeping those big states from having total power over everybody. By big states, I don't mean size of the state, I mean the population. The Founding Fathers did not fully believe democracy was safe. They wanted to make a system to where democracy was kept in check. What you have today is people railing about democracy being kept in check. We live in a representative form of government. We do not have direct democracy. We do not believe in direct democracy. When we hear people say that, oh, we live in a democracy, no, we live in a republic. There's a difference. And this difference is seen in these 2 articles, Article 1 and Article 2. We have different states which are sovereign, have their own powers, and all of these states together, working together, give us our republic. So Article 2 is talks about the powers of the president. See, there are certain powers that he's granted that are special, like he can commute sentences. Let's see if we can go down and find the listing. It would be okay, that's section whatever. So let's go to section 2. Nothing there. Go on. Section 2 gives him the power of Commander-in-Chief. It means he's in charge of the military. Go on. Section 3, which is, he shall at times give the State of the Union address. This is not a request, this is a requirement. He is required by law to give the State of the Union. He may, under extraordinary occasions, convene both houses, or either of them, and in case of disagreement with them, respect to the time of enjoyment. Basically, he gets to be the arbitrator between the 2 houses. But he shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and that all people in the United States follow the Constitution. All the commissions of the officers are according to the Constitution. He shall receive ambassadors and other public ministers from other countries. Okay, so basically this sets up the power of the State Department. Let's go on. Article 4 tells you how you can get rid of the President, the Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States can be removed from office on impeachment for crimes and convictions of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. Not just because you don't like him. Let's see what the next section brings us. I know there's a lot of pauses in here. You'll have to forgive me. I'm trying to do this in order. Okay, Article 3 sets up the power of the Supreme Court and the judicial power of the United States. So let's go ahead. We're not going to go down this too much. It basically says who shall have initial power. Okay. After we leave Article 3, we get to Article 4. Article 4 is called the Full Faith and Credit Clause. It says that each state must basically respect the laws of the other states, in so much as they have to respect that state has the right to make their own laws. You cannot sit there and say, live in California and make a law saying it's illegal for people in Texas to do something. It doesn't work that way. Also, that certain acts and records shall be accepted throughout the whole country. Your driver's license is a good example. The driver's license issued by the state of Texas has to be respected in the other states. By respected, meaning that if the person who lives in Texas is on vacation driving through California, you cannot give him a ticket for not having a driver's license out of the state of California. You have to respect that other state's license. Same thing with marriages and any other type of license. These things are acceptable throughout the United States. Now, Section 2. Citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of its citizens in all the states. You got to give people back from one state to the other. Basically, what you see here under this article is setting up how to keep the states working together, and that any disagreements go to the Supreme Court. When two states disagree, it doesn't go to the president, it doesn't go to the Congress, it goes to the courts. The courts are supposed to be a unbiased mediator. Alright, let's go to the next article. Article 6 talks about the debts. Basically, the U.S. shall pay off the debts